What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fit, Healthy, and most of all, Happy podcast. I am your coach and host, Josh, here with
his co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm in the house.
We have an incredible jam-packed episode planned for you today. So without wasting any of your time, we're going to get into our primary question, and this is a fun one. I noticed in old YouTube videos I was watching that Kyle used to be more muscular and strong. What happened? Did your goals just change, or are you finding it harder to put on muscle at this stage of life?
I just feel like I gave up. No, I'm kidding. This is a very valid question. So we have been asked this like in different ways from friends, from people who say, hey, like you used to be huge, right? Like if you look back probably about 7 to 8 years ago, I've gone through a lot of different stages. I've done a physique show. I've done a bulk to 207 pounds, which is 20-ish pounds more than I am right now. Even when I first started fitness, funny enough, like one of the greatest things I ever did was just do a massive bulk. So this was like very early on. So I kind of reached like a pretty solid point. I gained a lot of muscle in my first year or two of lifting, and my priorities have changed. A lot has happened over the last quite a few years. Even recently, one of the biggest things that has contributed to like more muscle loss was a lot of running. You know, as much as I'd say eat as much protein, strength train as much as you can, it definitely eats into a lot of muscle mass. And, you know, it's funny enough, a lot of times people don't really talk about that because there are quite a few people who will do like a ton of running and just like stay absolutely jacked, but they are doing some, you know, performance enhancing drugs to help with that. And that's another topic for another day. But I think like one thing I've definitely kind of gone away from is just like I kind of stopped caring about being as big as possible, and now I'm definitely really motivated to just gain all the muscle that I lost back, to get as strong and jacked as possible. And that's like for me, my at least 1 year vision for the next little bit is just to rebuild, to gain all that muscle back, to gain all that strength back. And that's my big priority and focus. And yeah, even like 3 or so years ago, I spent about 2+ years just doing like 50+ mile weeks consistently, and I was lean. I got pretty lean at the time, but I lost a lot of muscle. So yeah, I'm just ready to build back up, and I'm excited to document the process along the way as well.
Yeah, this is a funny question because there was a time when Kyle did this bulking experiment and he was pushing 200 or just past it. And every time I would meet with someone, people would just say, man, Kyle's gotten huge. It would be like the first topic of discussion. And Kyle has always been like a bigger, denser person. And even when we first started lifting in high school, he was like a big shoulders, lots of muscle. Not to say that he doesn't have a ton of muscle now. Of course he does. But he also would carry a bit more body fat. And he definitely transitioned to maintaining a leaner body fat. And even for me, I think this is a great example because if you try to work out for other people, you'll never satisfy them. Because I've had times where I've like shredded. People will be like, oh man, you were shredded. You look so good. And then like they'll see me out of context in a baggier shirt where I'm not pumped up. And people will be like, hey man, are you still lifting? Like, is everything okay? And then you'll have times you're bulking and people go, man, you're jacked. You look great. Then you take off your shirt, they run by. I mean, guys will be guys come by, grab your stomach fat or jiggle it or something stupid like that. Be like, man, you got to get in the gym. But it's so funny how it could be the same day in two different situations that people could have two radically different reactions. And I think this is where people will teeter so hard between bulking and cutting, because when you bulk, it's hard. It's hard to have a little bit of extra stomach fat. One day you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, I don't like that I'm putting on fat, but this is a way to put on muscle. And of course, you don't need to do a hardcore bulk. This would be the most efficient way to do it, but you can also taper that and do it more realistically by doing a lean bulk. And even for myself, I've been really happy in the range I've been in. I've been up to 242 pounds. Currently, I'm about 214, and I feel really good between like 213 to 250. And like I've kind of just been hovering here, so I haven't necessarily been putting on a ton of muscle, but I've been trying to improve the overall look of my physique. And I have a bit of a double-edged sword because I am quite generally a heavy person. Like 214 pounds is 214 pounds. So although like I love the concept of me being ultra super jacked, it is a bit of a challenge pushing those 230s, those 240s, because still like to do things. If I'm rock climbing or playing hockey or whatnot, it can be a little bit harder as you get up in that weight. But it's not to say I never will. But I think it's a fun thing to kind of reflect on this. And even with Kyle, like every push has a pull. Like obviously doing a ton of running, a lot of muscle was lost. The DEXA scale will kind of show that. But what's so cool is right now, this is where Kyle's doing that bench challenge. He's going to put on a lot of muscle, and it's really going to showcase what the power of a dedicated bulk can do, paired with being consistent with really tracking your nutrition as accurately as possible, giving it 110% in the gym. And I think this will be a really fun experiment to kind of highlight that. But that was a fun little twist I wanted to take on this, because no matter where you are in your journey, someone, even when you're really lean, you look amazing, you're dialed in, people will say, oh, are you sure it's healthy what you're doing? So you can't satisfy other people. There'll never be a point.
Yeah, and it's always fun doing different things, because although like I may have a few, I would never say regrets, but I would say lessons learned. But I'm like, oh man, I just things that I really enjoy more. And I personally, I like going through different phases, and that's something that's actually helped me stay consistent over the years, is just like going all in on something specific. And even if I were to give someone a piece of advice to like really see where they want to go and kind of like detach from what others will say, like Josh said, those who say, hey, are you sure, like you look a little sick, you might be too lean, or like are you trying to gain weight? Like we all know people have things to say, and even if they don't say it, they might think it, but that's, it's your own journey, right? But I would say spend some time reflecting on like what it is that you really want. And the reason I say that is because when I've been like super bulky and way heavier, my cardio would suck. And like if I had to do a sport, it just wouldn't really be that great. And then if I'm like too lean, where I'm like 160 or something, I'm just like, I don't like it, because I'm just not as muscular, I'm not as strong. And so I do know that there is kind of a more sweet spot. Instead of being like 200 or 160, it's more so kind of in the middle range. Although I might be kind of, I guess you could say, a jack of all trades at that point, because my cardio is pretty decent. I'm decently strong. I'm not like hitting record numbers on any categories at all, but I feel really good. And that's to me the most important thing. But I'm excited to see now that I've really dedicated time, and I'm going to get towards that 195 mark likely. When I get to that point and then just maybe cut for a little bit, maybe like 5-10 pounds, I think that'll be where I'm like most optimal, where I can, spend more time out on the ice playing hockey, and just, if I need to go for a run, I'll do a couple K and have no issues. And I think that's going to be a fun little experiment after this, but I'm really excited to document the process along the way of hitting a new bench press record, of beating someone, of really tipping those numbers on the DEXA scale too, because it really is demotivating when you look at it and I'm like, man, I've lost muscle to my legs. I've gained here, but I've lost here. So that's why I'm really motivated by that. And we'll see what the results are in the next couple of weeks or month or so.
Yeah, and if you want to put on some serious muscle and strength, there is nothing better than training on a bulk. And I think there's doing a really intelligent bulk where you're really just being aware of your calories, really bringing it. And when you're not just saying, I'm just going to eat garbage because I'm bulking, and you intentionally make an effort to hit your protein goals, to have a really, because carbs can be quite anabolic in a surplus, and really utilizing carbs and really trying to avoid just quick, simple fixes and sugars, and really saying, how can I bulk with some quality food, doing it intentionally, having a rate of gain from about like a half a pound upwards to 2 pounds a week. It's an amazing feeling, because I've done it a lot, and you can just, it's incredible to see how fast your strength can go, how much muscle you put on, the change in your physique. Yes, it'll be accompanied by some fat, but it truly is really, really fun to at least go through it once, because it's incredible how much muscle you can put on, and then you can go ahead and take that fat after. But if you've never explored the thought of a bulk, there is quite a lot of merit of it as well. And we made a lot of content on bulking and cutting for this reason, but it's one extra little fun note I wanted to share there. But now that we've done our first question, the next thing on the agenda here is our quote. What do you got, Kyle?
So this week's quote is, I came across it from a Reels video. I forget his name. I think it might be Chris, but it's quite inspiring. It's him out on a run, and he basically said, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't mess around, I don't party. Am I lame for that? Absolutely. And to be lame in the eyes of somebody I would never want to be like is nothing but an absolute success. So this is obviously pretty deep, and especially the more you think about it, it really gets me thinking as well. It's not to say you can't go out and have fun and do your own thing, but I really like just the concept that he has here. I know it's funny because even when you go to comment sections, it's like so much positivity, and then there'll be like people who are like, oh, well, can't you have fun? Like, what's wrong with you? And it's just funny because you'll always get that no matter what. But I think the message there is just that you'll always get feedback in different ways. Like even for those who maybe have not fully committed to their fitness journey and just like fully committed to being like a healthy individual, where it's like, hey, I eat healthy food. I don't skip the gym. I do my cardio. Like I'm that person, like I'm healthy and I'm living that amazing healthy lifestyle, you may not have recognized those types of kind of remarks and whatnot. But I just think it's great that if you want to do something, you just do it for yourself. And yeah, just don't worry about criticism, don't worry about anything else. And yeah, this was just a random thought that I had, and I really like this little quote that he had from his video that he shared.
Yeah, the clip definitely went pretty viral because it was pretty hype, just seeing him get out there, getting after it. And even that concept of just like grinding in the dark and not just working hard when other people are looking, like winning those battles when no one else is seeing what you're doing too. So even like yesterday, I forgot my belt and I'm like, oh, I don't want to deadlift here. And I had some really heavy deadlifts. I think I had 395, 3x6. But I'm like, this is an opportunity to work on my bracing, 6 reps, let's grind it, let's get it done. And it felt really good just to overcome that, because in those moments, no one would know that I didn't deadlift. But I feel like winning those battles and winning them for you and winning them towards your journey is so impactful. And even these points, right? It's doing these boring things consistently, trying to win. It's not to say you can never celebrate or do anything fun, but I think also like believing in what you're trying to achieve, buying into it 110% is so much better than teetering between two worlds of not knowing how you feel. So great quote, great point there. And for me, my quote is start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And it's from Arthur Ashe. And I love this because it's so easy to put things off. And unfortunately, as fitness coaches, we hear it all too often. We'll have someone who's ready to get started, who's desperately in need of this, who's seriously overweight, who has seen their habits go the wrong direction, who needs help, and they'll say, oh, I'll start in 3 months once I get my Christmas present, or once work picks up, or I'm going to start once it gets a little bit less busy with my kids and they get older. And then there's always some future thing. It's always someday, it's not today. And once again, it's just comforting to say, oh, I'll do it eventually, but you're almost hindering yourself more by not just taking action and figuring it out. And if you truly can't afford to make an investment into your health, you got to spend some extra time. Maybe you're blessed with having more time and you can research and learn and even listen to this podcast and then execute a higher level and get out and get these things done. Like, you need to start where you are, use what you have available, and do what you can. And this quote to me is just the best way of approaching it. And once again, even for us, we've been back to doing our consistent YouTube uploads, and we've always done a very similar format where we would vlog or we'd do like a how-to video in the gym. We've had less opportunity to film in gyms, but we just said we've been slacking here. Like, we need to get back to regular uploads, and we've just been challenging ourselves instead of overthinking it. Been putting out some great content. It's been great to see some traction coming, and just trying to get better and better each week. And perhaps it's not the perfect lighting, the perfect situation. There's always a lot of screaming in my house with children. I can't just do it whenever I want. I have very set times. I just need to buckle down, film, and just get her done. And that's what it comes down to. And once again, everyone's situation is so different. And it's funny, I was even reflecting with Kyle, like, in the past, like, we'd live at home and I went to school downtown. I'd commute an hour each way. And when I was downtown, Like, I didn't have too many places to go. So I'd film in like random hallways of my school, or I would film in like random rooms of my university that people weren't in. Then they'd come in to start a class and we'd be sitting there filming a YouTube video, or like in a stairwell doing a voiceover. So like, even that I could say, oh, it'll be better once I have a home. And then you have a home and there's construction outside, or your neighbors are loud, or your kids are loud. Like, there's always something that will truly pop up. And that's where, like, when you just work where you are with what you have and you do what you can't lose.
Yeah, I always love comparing like our journey of building what we've built to the fitness journey as well, because I feel like it can go hand in hand in so many different ways, right? Even Josh, like, starting that YouTube channel was very uncomfortable. And the first day he ever asked me to film that video, I was just, I hated it. I sat there. It was like, I just remember the laptop was on a chair and like, I just had to sit there and talk over this workout. And I was just like, what am I doing here? And then that led to like 13 years later, us like being where we're at now. Had I said no, like, maybe we would never be there. But, you know, bringing that back to the fitness journey, I love the concept, and I'm kind of calling out people who are in the range of like kind of the school age, right? Like, you're in college, you're maybe going towards high school, or sorry, after high school, or you're just out of college. Like, I see this happen a lot where you notice the trends. Like, if you give yourself the excuse and the way out right now, it's going to continuously get worse, right? So let's use an example of someone who's 22 and like, oh man, studying so hard. Like, I have no time to myself, right? And, you know, and then you don't take care of yourself. And then next up is going to be probably once you have your job is going to be hectic, and you're going to use that as an excuse. And then as we go down the years, it's going to be maybe that you have a house that you need to take care of, which, you know, will take some time and whatnot. You'll probably have the family as well. And then you'll have the kids. And it's like, if you start making those excuses and not using what you have early on, it's just going to continuously get worse. So I love being able to challenge that mindset of people who are struggling with this, because they realize afterwards, like, man, like I've just been making excuses. Like there's nothing to say here. And I had to talk to someone recently about that as well, because I'm like, in a way, I'm like, you don't even have kids here. And it's like, if you're already making these excuses and like allowing this to hold you back, it's never going to get better. I promise you, it'll never get better. I don't have a kid myself just yet, almost, but I know from firsthand experience of seeing so many people, of working with so many amazing individuals who've had tons of kids. And anyways, so don't put it off, use what you have. And I absolutely love that quote.
Yeah, and once again, too, it's hard to even talk about these things. And I had a hard time, obviously, with no kids talking about it, but the attitude stays the same. Now, someone with 2 kids, it feels better that I can say it. And it's funny, even sometimes people say, oh, wait till you have kids, and I'll be like, actually, I have 2, which is nice, right? But it's just so easy to, like, so many people have so much worse going on, or they're caring for other people, whether it's parents or people that need special assistance, that are just like working 4 jobs. Like, it's just so easy to play the misery card, and we talk about this a lot, but you truly need to just work with what's available to you, and you need to navigate it, and that's life. If you're putting it off for a date, things are going to keep coming up too. So whatever you've been putting off, take action now. That's what we're getting at. And I think that transitions perfectly into my thought. I read this, loved it, and had to share it. So growth is usually painful to some degree. That's because growth requires loss, a loss of your old values, your old behaviors, your old loved ones, your old identity. Therefore, growth often has a component of grief to it. And I love that, because letting go of the comfortable version of yourself. If you're significantly overweight, and you love sitting around eating pizza all night, it's going to kill you to not do that. And you're going to associate that with like how you relax, what brings you joy. And it's going to be really hard to go out on a nightly walk and spend a lot of time in activity. It's going to feel so different from who you are, and it's going to be painful. But that grief you're going to experience there is what's going to help you grow into the new version of who you are. And you're going to learn to disassociate like the positive behavior, positive feelings you felt to those negative behaviors, and you're going to be able to reapply them to behaviors that build you up as you become a new person and a new version of yourself, and a better, more inspired version of yourself. So I thought this was absolutely amazing, and just something I wanted to share.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I actually don't, for once, have a whole lot here.
That's all right. Well, I think we had some great notes in general, and we just like this area of the podcast. I mean, the first question was very much about Kyle and his journey, because it's a great opportunity to just kind of talk about what's going on, what's on our mind, what comes out throughout the week. I love popping in here and updating it. But who do we have for our client shout out?
And this week, we wanted to shout out Rumin, who's been absolutely crushing it with Coach Jason. He's over 20 pounds down, and he's just gained so much more confidence, clarity, energy. Every part of his life is just in a different spot, which is absolutely fantastic. Even Jason recently commented on one of his photos saying, "Looking sharp, brother." And Rumin responded back saying, "Because of our journey together, I couldn't wait to take my shirt off now." And it's just him looking jacked in a photo. And it's just no better feeling. I just think it's absolutely incredible to see someone gain confidence and just feel their absolute best, and kind of gain muscle along the way, gain muscle while losing fat. And I know a lot of people are in a bit of a trickier situation where they're unsure of what approach to take next, right? You know, they're kind of in a bit more of a skinny fat physique where their arms are a little bit smaller, they're a little bit skinnier, and they're just not sure what to do. And then they have a bit of a belly as well. And we love working with people who are in this position, because there's so much misinformation and you're just not sure where to take it. So anyways, we're super proud here. He's lost over 20 pounds while gaining muscle. Right now, we actually are running a promo. If you send us a message with the keyword skinny fat to our Instagram, which is Colossus Fit, COLOSSUSFIT, we will take care of you at a discounted rate. We guarantee your results, and you're just going to feel so much better. You're going to have confidence. You're going to have clarity. The game plan, you know exactly what you're going to be doing. And once again, we're confident enough to be able to guarantee results. So send us that message and we'll keep crushing it.
Yeah, this is a great one. And like we said, you got to let go of that grief, of that discomfort, to say, hey, I'm going to hire someone. I'm going to make this change today. No matter what pops up, I'm going to run through it and get it done. Now we're going to get into our second question for the week. And that is, I really struggle with stress eating. What are your top tips to combat this? And I love this. And I think the first step is identifying that you stress eat. If you're someone who likes to eat food to make yourself feel better, acknowledge that, understand that. And I find doing that alone is so powerful, because you'll be sitting around and you'll start to be bored, or you'll be sad, or if something's going on, and you'll want to say, okay, how can I eat to make this feel better? And then when you identify that feeling, just stop yourself, make it a challenge, and say, am I actually hungry? If you're tracking your food, it helps to know whether you actually should be. And that's kind of what I like about eating my calories, is sometimes I'll think I'm hungry and then I'll be like, hey, I'm not, I'm just bored. And usually when you're hungry, you'll truly know, but especially in these situations where you're sad or whatnot. And then identify that and say, okay, what can I do to change that? How can I make myself feel better right now? And how can I do that productively? Like if something's stressing you out, go tackle that thing. Don't overthink it. Get it done. Just go face it. Just take actions, take those first steps, and that'll start to alleviate some of that pain. Whereas just eating garbage food, making yourself feel worse, and putting off that thing is only going to make you feel worse. If you're just feeling sad and it's something you can't fix, what's something that builds you up? Are you someone who likes to read? Are you someone who really does love a movie? Are you someone, and you can enjoy that movie without needing food with it? Are you someone who likes to cook? You could cook and actually eat a really healthy meal, and if you have the calories for it. Or even for me, I find going on a walk, doing an activity, playing a sport, these things always immediately make me feel better. So those are my biggest tips. What about you, Kyle?
I really think that awareness part is huge, like Josh said, and I really try to pay attention. I think this is where most people go wrong, is they're not really aware of what's going on. Like, you have a bad day, it's tough, and you're just like completely mindless, and it's never going to get better from there. If I were to give one piece of advice, it's being aware of like the positive and the negative habits. So for example, on the positive side, it is doing some sort of cardio, maybe going for a run, going for a walk, like Josh said, even hitting a workout is absolutely fantastic. And I think unfortunately a lot of people will resort more to the negative ones when they are stressed or tired or overwhelmed or whatever it is that's taking place, such as overeating, maybe even drinking, binge watching something that's not good for you. And I think once you are aware of what's going on, but then you can actually use your willpower to do the more positive thing, which will take time. It's not like you're going to just snap your fingers and be like, oh, well, I'm not going to eat any chips anymore and I'm going to go crush a workout. Like, you have to work on it. It's not just going to happen. But the first thing is, of course, like being fully aware of what's going on and just taking that hard first step. But I will say, like, for myself personally, it's been one of the things I've done over the years is just like use activity and using like positive things to my advantage when I'm more stressed. So you'll hear people say, man, I was stressed. I had a whole, I ate so much and I drank or whatever it is. And then you'll hear like more of the person who, their identity is a bit more of like a healthy background, and they're just like, yeah, I went for like a long run. I went for longer than I usually would because I was stressed, right? So I'm just using that as an example. But the second that you can start changing that, even walking, I just think it's so fantastic because it gives yourself to kind of just be in a clear spot. You can just be present. You can look around. Like it makes you feel so good. And I love the quote. It's something about working out. It's the only workout you'll ever regret is the one you didn't do. And I can promise you, aside from like the one or two times I've got injured, I've never gone into the gym and just been like, man, I feel worse after this. So just something to think about. Change that habit. Be aware of it. And I promise you, it'll make such a big difference.
Yeah, and then after you do that productive thing, like Kyle said, it feels so much better. You're like, wow, I did the thing that actually will make me feel better, not the thing that I will quickly make me feel better. So I do hope that helps. I find too, if you notice you stress eat, like avoid snacky foods is my other advice. Like eat big, higher quality, good meals that are actually made with higher food quality. Because if you just start trailing off, you say, oh, I'll eat a few chips. Let's be honest, you're going to eat that whole bag. So I think finding foods where you don't hear of as many people stress eating salad or chicken breast. So if you can eat some really good food too and know your hunger signals and even just drink some more water, you can't go wrong.
I would also, begin with the end in mind. So this is something I learned from Stephen Covey like years ago of just like thinking long term. And I know the feeling of when I've overeaten, how it feels the next day. And I'll never forget that. You feel like, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. So when it's in that current circumstance where it's like, hey, I can have this and like I'm kind of feeling like I need it. And you start to think of like the effects for later on, for the next morning, maybe even for your workout the next day, like whatever it is that you can kind of associate with like it being negative. and then you compare that to like the positive stuff of how good you feel after a walk, a run, any cardio, a sport or something like that, a workout, I use that to my advantage. And I think it's just hard to do that because when you're kind of going through some things, you're like not going to sit there and exactly be like, oh, let me think about how I'm going to feel. But I promise you, if you have like a sticky note or if you have some like sort of reminder and you start to do that, it makes such a big difference as well.
Awesome. And now for our last question. I know I'm getting ahead of schedule here, but what are your goals for the new year? So I know Kyle partially spoke about his, but we'll let him jump into that after still, because I know there's definitely more to add there. But even for myself, I really want to finish this year strong. There's been a lot of fun content around Winter Arc, which is just essentially like where you just like lock in and you get in your zone and you just give it your all through winter and you power through the time that is a little bit less exciting and you work to build yourself up. Winter Arc, Monk Mode, Separation Season, these are all things we've said before, because this is usually where people will take their foot off the gas, they'll get a little bit worse, and your goal is to get better and to still navigate and have an incredible time throughout the holiday season and just when it gets a little bit colder there. So for me, immediately, that's what I'm focused on. Going into next year, I haven't thought too much about what my big goals are, I suppose, for the new year. I mean, definitely excited right now to just keep packing on muscle. We have the DEX scan in 2.5 weeks. That's like my narrow focus right in front of me. Obviously, being in Florida is such a great time for us to continue growing our content, growing our reach, growing our ability. And I think definitely there's some more goals within the business and the podcast and seeing growth alongside that than there is specific physique-based goals for me. I feel like I got a pretty good flow right here. And people say, oh, what are you training for? What are your goals? And like, I just try to incrementally get better. It's not especially sexy, but that's usually where my head's at.
Yeah, I think that's great. And even similar to Josh, like I've just been so dialed in on these next, I guess you could say 60 days, because my bench press competition's January 1st. The DEXA scan's in about 3 weeks or so. And so I'm like, that's all I can really think about right now. I'm like so dialed in on that. And I think past that, there's almost 60 days left to the year, right? Like when we're filming this, there's about 60. When it comes out, maybe be 58 or something, whatever the case is. And you can either use these next 2 months to the best of your ability, or you can waste it. Like Josh said, separation season, once December comes, even I know everyone for Thanksgiving, things can fall off a little bit, and, you can use December as like I did nothing, or you can use it to get better. And that's where I want to use every single day that's in front of me. So obviously the next roughly 60 days, and then end the year as strong as I physically can, whether it's, the baby comes out, whether it's like the holidays and there's a lot going on. I just really want to be the best version of myself, like every single way, as strong as I can be, mentally, physically, emotionally, all that great stuff. So it's going to be exciting going into the new year. I haven't spent too much time thinking about it, but I do know roughly game plan wise, once I am done this bulk, like I was saying before, I'll probably spend just maybe a little bit, especially in Florida, probably allowing myself to keep training as hard as I physically can, but just decrease my calories slightly so I can take off a little bit of fat, which will be exciting stuff there. But yeah, I'm more of like a, hey, what's in front of me type of person. But it is great to think about, going into the new year. And I think one thing I will say for those of you who are getting excited for it, because we already are still getting messages like, hey, like I had someone recently say, hey, I want to start in the new year. And I'm like, well, why not now? Like, it's such a great time. And that's one thing I want to challenge you with, like I said, because there's still so much time in front of us with these next few months. And I know you can accomplish some incredible things no matter who you are if you just get started now. Like Josh's quote, he said, with what you have and, your current situation. So yeah, that's my thought there.
Well, we want to thank you for tuning in with us today. If you want to break through skinny fat and address that once and for all, take off unwanted fat, build muscle, look like you lift, especially if you're in the gym putting in the work, we're going to show you how to do that. And we're going to show you how to do that while using less energy, doing it smarter, using high-level strategies, and just making sure you can do this for life. So stop saying one day, say today. Be sure to hit us up on Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusFit, with the keyword skinny fat to make that happen. I want to thank you for tuning in with us today. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace out.